was true. The idea for the move hadn't been mine, but it hadn't been a mad whim. It had been extraordinary, hadn't it? Supernatural, in fact. As Hamish meandered down the road, sniffing every possible excrescence in his path, I reflected back on Ceres and her paranormal guidance. Not that she reminded me of dogs, you understand, far from it. She was rather pretty, and lovelier still to me, because, like myself, she was a big woman. And Ceres. You don't get many people in Luton called that. Well, to be fair, she lives on the outskirts of Stevenage, but she advertised in Luton. For the psychic reading you'll never forget, mystic clairvoyant, seventh daughter of a seventh daughter with hereditary gifts. Let the spirits guide you to clarity. Find all the answers that you seek. I'd only been looking in the newsagent's window because I wanted a second-hand desk for my room, but there, next to the card showing a blurred picture of a camper van and the inevitable flyer for Weight Watchers, had been her notice. A genuine fortune-teller, no less. Someone who could, at the very least, read the tarot and at best, well, talk to the dead, perhaps? I couldn't help thinking that just once that it was fate that I'd seen her ad just when I was so low. Maybe she could help me, I thought. Maybe she could find out about Justin. And she had too, in a manner of speaking. That is, she told me he's okay. Just sort of resting and not able to come to the psychic phone right now, as it were. Of course he forgave me. There was nothing to forgive. My fault. There was no blame in heaven, Ceres reassured me. To be honest, it had all been a bit glib, that Justin stuff, but that was before Granny Scott butted in and gave me the urgent message about Cranley Dassett. We'd been sitting in Ceres's living room amidst tottering piles of toys and paperwork. There were no crystal balls, candles shaped like skulls, or pentacles the size of dinner plates, just a few framed botanical prints hung slightly askew, and a rather hideous mantel clock with a glass dome and rotating brass balls. There was a layer of dust on everything that would have led my mother to instantly label this large and perspiring woman as a slattern, yet my own consideration was that she was a little mature to have a small child. The toys must surely have an infantile owner. An unstoppable wave of jealousy had moved through me. Perhaps it was a little blonde kiddie, just like Justin's child would have been. Curious, gentle, creative. A little angel. A sweet darling. I implored her again to try and contact Justin, but he was silent. His child was never to be, and Ceres had begun to squeeze my hands tighter as we faced each other on the sofa. I was aware of them sweating as they pressed together. "You're bored," she'd said in quite a different voice. Something on the back of my neck prickled. What was I meant to say? Not right now, thanks very much. Did she think I was being rude? Was she in a trance yet? I sneaked a look at her large expanse of empty face. The eyelids were closed and flickering, and not a line on her smooth, clammy skin allowed me to read what went on within. Suddenly those lids snapped open, and her startling blue eyes stared at me. I was going to look away, embarrassed, but then I realised she was gazing not at me, but through me, into some unknowable beyond. Those baby blues, glassy and wide. It was startling. It was starting. "You need a change, love. A real change. You've been thinking about it, there's no denying it. A job overseas, yes, we know about that, but that isn't right for you. Not the right time, love, no." Ceres had lost her Essexy twang and was instead speaking in the distinct and distinctly comical Midlands accent of my dead Granny Scott. She took a breath in and released it with a marked wobble of cheek and jowl, and my own mouth hung open now. No matter, she couldn't observe my gormless expression because she'd closed her eyes again. Should I close mine too? No, because I wanted to see this weird phenomena of my 8 years dead relative speaking from this stranger's rosebud lips. And Ceres, Granny, was right. I had only recently been thinking of doing some voluntary work or even a kibbutz thing with my best friend Wensley. Anything for a change of scene. Maybe this canny woman had picked my thoughts up. But no, off she'd gone again in my granny's voice. "You should have carried on knitting with your knitting, lovely knitter you were. Remember that smashing little cardie, the one with the pink buttons and the shell, the pink one with the shell buttons? What should I say? It had been salmon-coloured and hideous and misshapen. I was a crap knitter, and she knew it, bless her." But she moved on with a lick of Ceres's cherubic lips. Raby and Buxy are here, you know, they're all watching out for you. I gasped. This was getting a bit much. Grandad and the old rabbit were watching out for me. I mean, I'd love the rabbit, but... Don't worry, dear, there's no need to be afraid. It's only us. There's death in life. Not that death is all that it seems, of course, but now that's not the time for that. Ceres visibly settled herself, smoothing her skirt in a most Granny Scottish gesture. Now then, let's see. This man you're with, he's not it, you know, my pet. Oh, no, not at all. I see another one, though, now. Good with his hands, I'd say. He's a bit artistic, he is. The creative sort, you know. Good with children, too. He's very tidy, very clean. Taller, a dark man. A tall, dark man. That's nice, isn't it? The children you could have with him, their souls are waiting here for you, but you needs to move first, Lulu May. It's time for you to move on now. What, where, when? I couldn't stop the rising notes of desperation. Please tell me. Ceres, lost in my grand's personality, gave a slow smile and then gurned in that odd way that was something to do with false teeth. My heart lurched painfully. Nanny Granny! Oh, God, I did miss her. It would have been so lovely to have her around when I lost Justin. Even though she wouldn't have understood, she would have put me first, not her own distaste as my mother had. Maybe Nanny could look after Justin wherever they were now, but as for me, where was I to go? What did she mean? There's a clear path for you now, my love, going south like the sun to like a lovely little birdie. Remember our Joey? Shame I had to keep him in a cage all those years. You'll fly free, going southwest. Find Cranley, Dartlet, that's the place. Yeah, he's there, the dark man. They're all there. Golden and shining it'll be for you, my sweet. You move there before the summer, before the moment's lost. Move fast for once, my darling. You mind your nanny Gran now. God bless you. The voice was fading away, sounding a bit more like Ceres and less like my beloved Granny again. I could see her straining for more etheric information, listening to something beyond my own ken. I held my breath. For the old rags and sunshine. Follow the sun, love. You mind my words. There's a good girl for your nanny Gran. Ceres had opened her watery blue eyes again, blinking behind her round glasses. She shook back her hair and let go of my sticky mitt. I let out my breath in a rush, lungs the size of teacups. That was my trouble. Clearly, that had been my lot. Wow, I said. I'm renowned for my articulacy in 5 counties. But then she held up her finger, and a very small finger for such a big lady it was, more like a podgy child's. He says, take the money and go. Do you understand me? Who? The money he left you, and don't worry, Ben'll be fine. How will it... Who is it? That's it! And it was. Ceres clapped her hands and shook them out vigorously. Strange, was I meant to join in, giving a round of applause to her and the deceased? But before I could ask, she was up on her dainty feet, smoothing her voluminous floral dress and straightening her simple gemstone pendant. Such lovely smooth skin she had. My mother always said that fat people had better skin, but mine wasn't so good because I loved the sun. Ceres was untanned and freshly pink, soft and unlined, but that smoothness worked to my disadvantage, making it hard to read her expression. So I stayed put, not knowing what she wanted. Besides that, I was gaspingly breathless with what just occurred and totally out of words. Ceres coughed, partly to alert me that she wanted me to get up, and partly because she'd sparked up a fag. Sorry to rush you, love, but I've got to go, I'm afraid. She blew out a dragon's plume out of her tiny nose. I'm picking Toby up from his dad today, and I've got to be on time for it, pernickety bastard. I swear he keeps a stopwatch and makes a note of my arrivals and bleeding departures, as if he were the responsible parent. Anyway, that'll be 50, please. Pardon? £50, sweetheart, that's right. She held out her free hand. But it was meant to be 50. We agreed on the phone, 50 an hour. I was sitting there, stunned. It hadn't been an hour. She'd said to me when I'd phoned her £35, and I was still lost with Granny and Justin. Justin had left me a couple of £100 acquired from God knows where in an envelope on top of his empty fridge. That last message about taking his money. It had to be that. It had to be him. Why couldn't he have said more? Just so it proved he was there, that he did still exist. Suddenly, as so often happens with me, I burst into loud, unruly sobs. None of your Hollywood, mind. No artfully applied streak of glycerin. Mine were great, snotty, gulping sobs of pain that no director of any merit would leave uncut. How did grief come out in others through one meaningful tear that would wind its way charmingly down a cheek without wreaking havoc? Visceral would have been my middle name if it hadn't been Patricia after my aunt. Maybe if my mother had gone to a swinging London art college instead of a provincial secretarial college in the 60s. I gulped and wheezed, inhaling the last belch of Cerez's fag and choking unpleasantly. What a mess. I'm so sorry, I croaked. Cerez shrugged and left the room, promptly returning with a child's plastic tumbler of tap water and a piece of embossed toilet paper. She stood there, untangling her mass of mousy curls with her fingers as I blew my nose onto the woefully inadequate square of tissue. It took me an hour to make myself look even remotely decent in the morning, and less than a minute to render myself a heap. I gulped a mouth of tepid water just to be polite. Cerez sighed heavily and looked at her watch. With this, I thought I'd better stand up, ready or not. Swaying slightly, I rummaged in my copious bag until I found the agreed £35 in cash, plus my chequebook. Good job I brought it. How long had I been there? 15 minutes? 20 max? Certainly a nice going rate she had. Oh, God, couldn't Justin have just said something more in his own voice? My nanny Gran had spoken in hares at least, but even then she could have been more. But how could I say it hadn't been worth it? Nanny Granny had told me what to do at last. Now I had a direction, a new direction. Annie was safe. My love, my silly, messed-up bastard love. I turned to thank Cerez, but she'd already gone to the front door, that she held open for me in a gesture that I couldn't possibly misread. Talk about getting a wiggle on. Really sorry to rush you, but the bugger can't be trusted to wait around if I'm late, you know what I mean? Does it on purpose, trying to make me an unfit mother. Without waiting for a response, she slammed the door hard behind us, and we were both in front of our respective cars on the pavement before I could say ectoplasm. Cerez, despite her laboured breathing and obvious bulk, was into her Volvo in a trice, leaving me swaying on the pavement, feeling confused and raw. She rolled down her window and stuck her head out. Don't forget to recommend me. Goodbye then, she called, cheery again. Now, and with another minute, she was gone. Gone, like Justin. Gone, like Nanny Granny. Gone. With my shaking hands, I eventually managed to open the door of my powder blue and rust Fiesta, and then I sat fingering my car keys and staring out of the windscreen. Boy, did I feel weird. Maybe I needed a snack. My life had just changed, and I needed to mark the occasion somehow. And that's how it began. Such was the impetuous impetus for my imminent move to Cranley Dasset. After some preliminary confusion with the non-existent Cranley Darset, damn the otherworld mispronunciation of my spectral gran, I had discovered through the internet that the said place was a small Somerset market town, as in Somerset in the southwest of England. Follow the sun, indeed. And I was off, at least in my mind, flying mentally towards happiness and love, and who could blame me after what I'd been through? Apparently my parents. And what about my brother? And what would Wensleydale say?